Welcome back to Pixelated Thoughts. It's me and Brad today because we're going to talk about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And Brad has about around 10 hours. I have about 30 because I played this game a lot. And I was going to talk about our general impressions of it. And the thing I want to bring up is like where we want or how, if possible, if the third game is going to be like, I mean, how are you going to up the ante here so far? Because from my impressions from this time frame is like there's so much content here, it's insane.
I think they're taking a page out of Mass Effect's playbook. And I say that. So the first volume of Final Fantasy for the remake. So for remake, right? It was very linear. It was very story driven, right? You're introducing all the characters. Everything's being pushed along chapter by chapter. It's very story based.
Right.
Mass Effect, the first one, you're introducing all the characters. It's not as linear, but once again, it's very story based. It's pushing everything through. The second one, however, it was just guns a blazing, everyone's dying. They've already introduced all the characters.
The
You're
big
just having
suicide
fun.
mission.
Yeah, you're just having fun. All the characters are there. I think that's where they're going with the second one with Rebirth. All the major characters have been shown for the most part.
Yeah.
So they're just like, hey, let's just open it up and have fun with it. They don't have to end the story with this one. So there doesn't have to be there's really not a whole lot of expectation that there's that cliffhanger ending. They can push it off into the third one, which if Mass Effect, I hope they end it better than Mass Effect ended theirs. But once again, the third Mass Effect was very dramatic, very intense for the third game, and I think that's how Final Fantasy VII is going to go in that direction of intense, dramatic,
Yeah,
emotional.
I think the third title is called Reunion, right? I think that's what it is. It's kind of insane because I went into Rebirth expecting, us getting a little bit into the open world. I was wondering, how they were going to handle it because you have so many areas and I'm at chapter 9 right now, and there was a part where I kind of like was like, let me get to the story a little bit, but you can always pivot back because the fast travel system in this game is fantastic. You can, if you have not played Ghost of Tsushima, and I just love it. I bring that up all the time, but that fast travel system to me is like revolutionary. It's essentially you just every spot objective you get to go to, it's like you snap back to it. And what they've done so well is that almost every objective in the world, especially that you're doing for Chadley, it's like right next to each other. It's never too far. It always feels like you're moving so much faster than how the map looks. Like I'm like, damn, that's like really far away, and then you're like, oh shit, I'm already there.
Yeah,
That took no time at
yeah.
all.
I so the first chocobo stop,
Mm-hmm.
with the little chocobo, and you follow them to the chocobo. I'm like that's Ghost of Tsushima, and then literally everything that I saw in the open world was just this is Ghost of Tsushima. Like it was
Somebody
just
was inspired,
the only thing that I will say is I going through the grasslands,
Mm-hmm.
I felt like the map was um the the scale wasn't there. I don't think so. I really felt like it was just one small section of a map.
Right.
It wasn't like you're running through the Great Plains you know
Mm-hmm.
of a world
Right.
like Ghost of Tsushima, right? It
It
really felt
it's
like you were traveling
it kind of felt
great
like
distances.
Final Fantasy 16, right? Where you'd have like
Yeah,
interconnected
yeah,
open worlds when you kind of went
right.
there, and I was so okay. So you have like this like really sandbox area, and what's really interesting is that like and you haven't gotten there yet, but I would say that the structure of the chapters in this game are a lot like Final Fantasy 15, where you would go in from like an open world to a linear chapter to an open chapter, an open like chapter, an open area, and stuff like that. I think that the one thing that they've really nailed in terms of its open world is that to me the objectives, they're all like fun to complete because I think combat's good, the music's good. I think the dialogue between the companions are good. It's nice to have like a full party, you know. Like hearing Red 13 just shit talk everyone, also seeing him ride a chocobo for the first time was like, dude, what the do you need to? I guess he does because it's a long distance. Um but kind
Two
of
legs
getting,
are better than four.
I
So
mean, why not, dude? And then you're seeing all these like it's interesting because like what they do, and this is really clever, is that they add a world phenomenon to every major open world area, and they make it so unique. And it's kind of like it's not unique like to that area either. Like it's just like a unique event that happens, and then they add like a mini game to it or something to kind of break up. You know what would be like I think Final Fantasy 16's biggest complaint was that outside of like the combat and the story, the side quests were really lacking. But here, because they've added that relationship system, you know, every side quest matters because every character kind of gets involved and does their own thing. You know, so I fucking love that. I think
Well,
it feels like, dude, and this is weird, right? I'm not saying that Square Enix kind of like saved or they're you know, it took 4 years to get here, which is wild because I think remake came out in 2019. But what they've done with Rebirth, when everyone was kind of complaining about the linear sections that you were talking about with Midgar, and we're all like, oh, okay, you know, we spent 30 hours in this area. It's really nice that they expanded upon things. That's great. But once we got into like the open world, I was like, holy shit, they topped it from the first like area. Just like the diversity of like the location, the characters you meet, Queen's Blood, right? Which we'll get into. I feel like I was kind of wondering like how you could top yourself, and then they did it, and I'm like, shit, how are they gonna like? How would you end up closing it? And it should be better than Mass Effect 3, you know,
yeah.
maybe.
Well, and I mean, I enjoyed Mass Effect 3, right?
Right.
But the problem was it was the conclusion,
Yeah.
and it was a bad conclusion, right? It was a good game, bad conclusion.
Yeah. Correct.
I at least Final Fantasy has, you know, a structure to follow, right?
There,
They don't
there,
have
are,
to just
there are so
make some
many.
stupid up.
There are so many things that Rebirth has changed, especially because obviously there was parallel universes and storyline and timelines happening, right? And the opening gives like a really nice hint of that, especially with like Nibelheim. I thought that was a great chapter to open on. I played the demo of it, so you know I wasn't gonna redo that shit. Um, and I think it would have taken me longer, honestly, if I did replay Nibelheim again or just kind of played that section. I just
I downloaded the demo just to start it up so I could load into the game and get the bonus.
that's a good idea. I just think that like when you're looking at Rebirth as a whole right now, like I said in my impressions video that it would have to fall off a cliff after I got to chapter 7, and I can confirm that it has not. Like it has whatever you thought would like be
Shame.
upped with like, you know, Mount Coral and the Gold Saucer, do they it's so much it's so good. Like I'm just shocked that we have a content once again, we have a content complete game in this era of early access titles and live services, and somehow Square Enix was like, "Look, man, we love our Final Fantasy IP. They've been hitting it off since what Endwalker, which was like almost through. Oh my god, like 2019, right? So
I think
like
so.
Endwalker, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Final Fantasy 16, 7 Rebirth is a massive hit, and I think Dawn Trail, which comes out in May, I don't know. Square Enix feels like they're just once again they have like the little titles like like Valkyrie Profile. Like yeah, we'll bring you back just to make a really average game. But Rebirth has been, in my opinion, from what I've played, great. So my question to you is, Brad, are you shocked that there's this much content already when you first like get into like calm and stuff like that? No,
No.
really. After
Yeah, I
playing like 16 and remake.
no. Well, so once again, it's part of the trilogy, right? I feel like the second game is where you would do that, right? You've you've got all the story stuff out of the way. You don't have to end the story. You don't have to close it out, right? So it's you you know you have the golden saucer in there. You know, you know you have a lot of the open world travel. So I'm pretty sure. Well, I take that back. I don't know what they were thinking, but if I was in that room, I'm just like, what would be fun to do, right? Like let's just whiteboard it out, just all the fun things, and then let's do like a Sweet 16 tournament of the best things, and then we take the best things and we put it in the game, right? Because there's no major expectations outside of the content, right?
Right.
We don't need to have 2 hour cutscenes. We don't need to do these crazy uh, you know uh, linear sections of of story beats and exposition. It's just a major part of the game was the traversaling or the the random content, the random chaos, I guess,
Hmm.
of the grind and seeing all the new creatures and places. So why not just make it just add all the fun things?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, I haven't kind of enjoyed like a Final Fantasy card game before. Like I think nine had one, right? I thought nine was okay.
Yeah.
What do you think of Queen's Blood? Like, what's been your your experience with that so far?
Uh, I think I've only encountered like 6 or 7 people.
Yeah, it's about how it starts, and
It
then they just start
yeah.
opening it up.
It's a card game. I like mini games. I was like one of 3 people that liked Blitzball. I like Triple Triad. Tetramaster was the one in 9. Um,
This man's insane for liking Blitzball, dude. I just could not get
uh,
it. I just didn't get it. I was like, what the fuck is wrong with this game?
you can break it quite easily. You can reset and kind of like have a broken team.
You
But anyways,
can restart in Queen's Blood too. Like, and
no, I
there's
mean
no.
like you can like reset the like
Oh,
players.
oh,
You
I
can
didn't
like
know that.
restart progress. Yeah. Um, because you like other teams can outpace you. Other teams can get better than you, and then you're just kind of
Oh,
stuck
Jesus.
if you don't play it correctly. What was the integrate Fort Condor?
Yeah.
Um, I really liked that one. That one was pretty cool. He was a little bit more active. It was like the 14 Final Fantasy 14 game, the Minions game.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I
mean,
don't
it's
remember
interesting. Like,
Masters.
and here's the
Master
thing:
game.
you've seen Fort Condor, you've seen like the trailer, so you've seen the visuals of it, and I've played
Yeah.
it and got through that section, which was amazing. Like, I've seen people say, listen, if you want to do a Final Fantasy VII Classic and you want to do it like that, I mean, why the fuck not? I think there would be some people who would absolutely buy a Final Fantasy VII Classic with that reskin. You know, just kind of update the every time you go have like little Fort Condor like chopping around, and then as you get into combat, it flashes into Final Fantasy VII, classic style, and then outside of combat, you're back in that little goofy. I think it'd work out. I just think that like the problem with a lot of open world games is that you get to that part where there's a lot of bloat, and it just gets in the
Mhm.
way, right? And I think that's where the game design for Seven Rebirth is so perfect to me, where it's like there's open world sections and linear, and it just constantly like
Right.
switches between two. But not only that, what it does so well is that it introduces like different things to do, and it's not just combat. Even though I think the combat in this game is really good, you can still play dynamic, you play classic. Um, I also found I was getting my ass kicked a lot more in this game when I was like face certain enemies. Like, holy shit, what is happening?
Yeah.
Why am I taking so much damage? Goddamn. And like they added so much, and it just you know once again, a lot of open world games can get really boring if you kind of I would say like you have too much redundancy, right? And you don't have enough interesting areas. And I think Seven Rebirth just doesn't do that. Like the crazy thing is, I think a big part of that is the music in this game. I don't understand it, bro. I know you've done the Kiri side quest, and she has like her own theme song, right? And you're like, where the fuck did that song come from? Like everything has like its own theme. It feels like, and I think
I
that just works
do
so well.
yeah, I do wish the overworld music was a little bit quieter. Like it's loud as all the other music, but it's consistent
Yeah,
always. It's kind of loud and it gets a little repetitive, so I have to turn it down and then I forget to turn it back up when I'm in the story bits, so then like I feel like I miss out on a little bit of the music, but that's just a kind of a pet peeve of mine. Just hearing the like one song for multiple hours um at the intensity that they want you to listen to it. Um
I think the editing and mixing is fantastic too.
yeah,
Like the way you go
the
outside when you're like roaming around, and then you go into combat and it switches.
yeah, I love the Burks Badasses like techno like dubstep music.
Yeah,
That's
what the Burke side quest is so stupid. Dude. They're so
it's
dumb.
very stupid.
Kind of like
Um, but I do like the open world. I do feel like it's a good mix of unique experience
mhm.
because open world fatigue, right? Um, Ghost of Tsushima, wait, that's content overload. Like I don't need to go to 47 different springs and meet 37 foxes and do 247 haikus and like when I was because I actually 100% of the grasslands, and I got about 70 to 80% done. I'm like, man, I'm about done with this area. Like I've literally done side content for like 6 hours. I really want to push on, but I only have like five more objectives. So I was
Right.
like, I'm just going to knock it out. So I felt like they pushed the line a little bit, but it was just like they I feel like they hit that little sweet spot of I'm about over it, but I can finish the last few to move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. I think that, once again, and then your mileage is going to vary because, like, what's interesting is that none of this affects the story. It just affects, like, the thing is, like, everything you do in the open world will benefit you because, it gives Chadley points. It gives you, like, the ability, if you go to all the different shrines, it can weaken Titan. Because I don't know if anyone ever tried to fight Titan, like, straight up when Chadley's like, hey, yeah, you can summon him. I'm like, great. And I'm like, holy shit, he is beating the crap out of me, dude. What is this? I
I'm
mean,
doing 7 damage.
yeah,
Woo!
I'm doing 3 damage to him. Great job, Cloud. Holy shit. I think that's one of the things that was so interesting is like there's like incentives to actually complete these objectives if you want to weaken Titan or if you want to get points for different materia, that type of stuff. I've always felt like a lot of open world games kind of fail in that regard. Even with like and this is kind of weird. Like one of the things that I don't like just like running around just on foot is that I have to manually tap to pick up resources when I'm on a chocobo. It's like one tap, one tap, one tap, one tap, that type of stuff. And but like you have like I haven't really bought much stuff because I can craft things, right? The crafting mechanic is pretty solid. It's this is like one of these games where I think Square Enix perfectly understood like there's a balance that you need to have, right? And as you move along in the game, it's like you're gonna balance humor and then seriousness. And like once again, I think the Final Fantasy series has always done that really well. Even 16, which was more somber in tone, I think they did a really good job there. But here it's like there's some really funny scenes and there's some dramatic scenes. And the scenes that you're expecting because you're a veteran of the game, you played it multiple times before in the past. That stuff comes up and it's all really well done. I think everything translated well. I think all the updates they've made to the different characters is really fun. And there are certain scenes where I'm like, that's a spectacle. Some of these scenes are just like you're kind of excited to see how things will work out in like Costa del Sol or what the gold saucer looks like. And when you get to the gold saucer, I'm just not spoiling anything, but I was fucking blown away by what I saw there. I was like, what is happening? Why is everything so clean? Um, I can't like I don't like even like the first who's the first major boss you fight? It was the big snake, right? I think like kinda. I was
Mid
like,
Swarmer, yeah.
yeah, I was like, yeah, this is great looking.
Kicked my
Everything's
ass, by the way.
he beat your
I, I I won the battle, but two of my people were dead.
I was my party right now is probably Barrett and Red 13 as like my pressure party. They just do so much. And like I try to get Cloud to punish you, but like sometimes when I'm not defending, he just get absolutely murdered. I'm like, dude, why can't you just stand up and fight? What the fuck?
Yeah. So I like the counter mechanic or the immune parry or whatever,
Hmm.
but it's so unreliable. Like if I'm attacking, right? Because the the dodge is much more reliable in the like cancel, like animation cancel. The
Right.
dodge is so iffy, so it's not worth it 90% of the time.
Yeah, I mean, you really what this game really tried to do is that because you're in Nibelheim for the first time and they teach you like the parry mechanic, the perfect parry can knock certain enemies back, and then even with certain like well-timed dodges, you can knock an enemy down on a counter. One of the things like I was like trying to figure out was like when Cloud dodged and then he was like throwing like gusts of wind slices, and I was like, where the fuck did you learn that? That was the I was messing around. I was like, when did you learn that move? What's going on here? Like, why is his affinity wind? I think
You've
that like
watched
let's say
Dragon Ball.
there. I mean I feel like combat is a little bit more difficult in terms of just like health. Like you get melted fairly quickly.
Yeah, I, there's more things to think about. So I, when I did my second playthrough of the remake,
Hmm.
like I literally had it down to a science. I was using the one that like the first strike. I had a maxed out first strike, and I
Right.
literally go into battle, just braver, braver, braver. Everyone's dead. We go to the next battle.
I forgot
Really
how
can't do
good
that
Braver
here.
was, by the way, because I love Triple Strike. So I
Yeah.
was like, oh yeah, I forgot Braver. And I was like, as soon as I got into certain areas and fought certain bosses, like, holy shit, Braver is amazing. I forgot about this move. Um, I have this like, you know, inkling that the complaints I've seen about Rebirth are usually just stupid ones like, how can you only like a fraction of the game? It's like, guys, you got to look at everything as like its
I mean, it's
own
true.
title. I mean, as an overall whole, like I look at Final Fantasy VII Rebirth as a continuation, not a sequel. And I look at like, you start with the remake. You're right, linear. Still really good. A lot of people who didn't like the changes from the classic stuff. There's arguments there. I understand. And then you go from like Rebirth, and they're like, all right, cool, open it up, and you're like, enhance, enhance, take everything you liked about it, enhance that, take everything like that made sense. You add the folio system out of nowhere, right? And you're just like, okay, we added a grid system, cool, whatever. And then you move from there, and it's like, do you want to have every chapter scale differently? And that's the important thing that this game nails. And you'll notice that as soon as you get into later chapters, is that the great games that you've played, they don't keep it the same. They try to introduce new and fresh mechanics constantly, or at least concepts, to kind of freshen up things so that you're not just sitting there going like, slash slash slash, he's dead, we're moving on. This game, and like the way we loved Final Fantasy 16's boss fights, right? Like every boss fight was different. Ultimately, Clive was going to say something incredibly like, majestic at the end of when he fights it, right? And the thing
For
is, yeah,
liberty,
for
and then
liberty. And with Seven Rebirth, it's like every chapter I've been to, they're like, all right, cool, here's a new mechanic you're getting introduced. I'm like, dude, what the fuck's going on? Why is it happening like this? And it's like consistent new content to kind of keep you interested and invested. And then on top of that, the new relationship system, right? Which is something that like I don't know about anyone else, but I love like watching Red 13 just absolutely shit talk Barrett all the time. Like to give him more personality, because I really felt like when you had him in 7, there were some characters that I felt like were just kind of there sometimes, like they didn't have like that personality come out, you know. And here they give Red so much to do. Like he desperately wants to be accepted by humans, but it's like everyone else, like the party gets it. They're like, all right, cool, Red. He's like, but they think of me as a pet. I'm like, that's not how they think of you, dude.
I don't.
Relax.
Well, that first farm that you go to outside of Calm, the
Oh,
guy's like, "Who's the good boy?"
who's a
He's like,
good?
"Rrrr."
He's, but then you throw him food. He's like, ah. They really gave, and like when he went to go with the chocobo, my favorite thing, dude, was when he was like, yeah, my sense of smell, and the chocobo picks up. He's like, what? He didn't understand how the chocobo picked up the fucking scent so fast. That was like, he's like what? It must have been like my time out here. Constantly trying to make shit up, dude. He does that the constant, like the entire game. He's like great, and they do that with every character. And I think that I love the classic game. I know you do. You've modded the game multiple times. You know,
I actually remodded it last night.
you're
Something broke and I couldn't play it, so I had to
like we have to
install everything.
enhance. And this is kind of what I wanted out of this game too, out of this experience, because I know that there are a lot of people who were concerned about when a game gets remade, like what concessions are you going to make? And I think that they followed the script for the most part, but they've really kind of enhanced the characters as well. Like I think Yuffie, to me, when you find like when people get around her, dude, I love her character now. Even when Intergrade, like she was like such a fucking smartass about stuff, and you got hints of it in Final Fantasy VII, but once again, like the emphasis really was on Cloud, you know. And it's also nice that Cloud isn't so fucking moody in this game, right? He actually is fun to be around, like the way he talks. Like you can kind of see this evolution to his character, which is always great.
In the Nibelheim flashback, when you're going to the town and he's like narrating what he was doing, and he goes into Tifa's house and he
Yeah,
goes into her room, and she's like, "You went into my room?" He's like,
yeah.
"Yeah." He's like, "You went into my closet?" Sorry.
Yeah.
They were both like asshole.
What a dick. Look, because it
Uh,
was always something I always wanted to know how it translated, right? Like if you fail the piano part, which by the way, playing the piano in this game, like if you're not dexterous at all, dude, you will absolutely bomb out because there are some really hard pieces. What's interesting is that when you're playing the piano, and like if you fail, it's really funny how like Barrett shit talks. He's like, "Yeah, you should probably stick to your day job, man." I was like, dude, what the fuck? Um, I think there's so much charm to this game. I do, dude. I'm telling you, Queen's Blood. For some reason, every character has an intricate backstory and a reason why they got into it. My favorite one so far is when you're playing the girl with the boxes surrounding her. And she's like, "You
Yeah.
broke down my car." And then she goes into this whole thing, and I'm like, "Why do you guys all have like this tragic background? Like, this is a fucking card game, dude." Some of the ones that you get to later on, like the ones that are like level 6, they're really funny. Like they look like just really awkward, kind of borderline villainous people, and they're just like really sweet. There's like, I just want to play cards with people, man. I was like, "Oh, that's cool, dude." Jesus. Um, let's talk about the Moogles, man.
How about no?
Let's talk about the meth Moogle. This is like the only thing I do not like about this game. For one, I like the fact that I get all the medals, and I don't mind wrangling the Moogles. Which, by the way, when you get to like higher levels, they just don't stop fucking with you the whole time. I'm like, what is going on?
I
Even
had
after
no
you,
idea what to do the first time.
even after you push them into the pen, they'll still throw stuff at you. So it's like mischief level 4. I'm like, fuck this. But dude, I thought it was somebody like in a Moogle costume for a moment.
I think some things are not meant to be HD, and apparently
Well,
Moogles are one of them.
well, no, they nailed it in Final Fantasy 16. They had the classic design. That's all you had to do,
Oh my god.
right?
It
I was
looks like
thinking
a
like the Final Fantasy 14, right, where he had like the little hat and he's like the little mailman. I'm like, oh, that's cool, man. He's a Moogle. And I'm like, what is this meth addict?
it's like a wish teddy bear,
I know.
like a
We
like a
got
Chinese
we
knockoff.
we've got Moogles at home.
I was like,
The
oh god, there's more than one.
the moment I
Uh,
saw that, dude, I was like, what the fuck, dude? It
and
felt
they have like squirrel teeth. I'm like,
yes. What did we
what
do here?
and why
Who
are they living in Pooh's house? I don't understand what's going on.
what nightmare land was Square Enix like? Who is the designer for this? Like, we got to talk to this man. Did he know he was going to give that many people like nightmare fuel? Like, that's all I see on social media is people like, look, man, we all think Rebirth is great. Yeah, thumbs up. What the fuck is wrong with the Moogles? Why is he like that one big buck tooth right there, right? And I'm like, dude, can you? I expect you ever watch it was like the meme of like the old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right? Where you could see inside the mouth of Donatello when he's
Yeah.
laughing. And I was like, that's what I expect. There's a person inside there. I'm like, is there someone hiding in there, man? Like, what the fuck? I like every other design though. Like the chocobos look fantastic. They look so good. Like it's just so much fun to have like the chocobos. I love like the different enemy designs. I love how some of the different bosses and monsters look. I love how they animate, and then like you get to the Moogle, it's like what dollar store?
They spent all their budget on everything else, and they were like, crap, the Moogles.
Oh shit, we have to have Mog in there. I'm hoping like eventually down the line when you get all the Moogle like stuff done, it's like I get to see like a real Moogle, and they fight each other. Like, who the fuck are you? Like maybe there's like an alternate universe, and they're like, yeah, that's our distant cousin.
That would actually be great. I'm not I've not seen Zach since the very beginning of the
Mhm.
of the intro.
Oh, dude, I would love
If,
that so much.
if in his timeline they look like normal Moogles.
Well, I mean, like you saw Yuffie in like her, in her Moogle outfit. You're like, oh, I expect them to kind of look like that, and then it's like, what the fuck did we do? Where did we go wrong? It's like the big oh god moment. What happened? Because everything else, dude, like I'm telling you, man, when you get to certain sections, you're gonna absolutely like love some of the stuff that comes up because there are some really funny interactions with some of the like characters you've seen in the past, dude. I'm just like, dude, thumbs up. These are all so well done. And it's just the Moogles that throw me off. Like I don't ever. I was like playing last night. And I was like, oh shit, I don't want to get to this part. I gotta ditch out the Moogles and fight a monster or something. Or I'm gonna think that Moogle's gonna come out like, what are you doing over there? Come on and hang out with me. I mean, they made the fat chocobo look great, because I saw the most of the if you have Queen's Blood cards, like you'll see like the fat chocobo and all these other things, and I'm like, all right, dude, they made all these other things look great. Everything translated well. How did we not get this? How did we go from this beautiful, Final Fantasy 16 traditional Final Fantasy Moogle, right? Mog was in 3 or 6, I'm sorry. Which one was your party member in?
Uh,
It was 6, right? I think Mog was in 6. That is your listen, Square, like this is your, early on, if people remember, and their Final Fantasy 1 through 6, they always had a Moogle, right? And you were like, yeah, fuck yeah, they look great. Like that's what we expected. And then somehow it got shipped in a box and hit with a bunch of bats. It came out saying, "Do you love me?" And like,
6.
so it was 6, yeah.
Yeah.
So, dude, Mog has to be disappointed, right? Like, let me show me Mog. Like, what does Mog look like?
He looks like a he looks like an anime mouse, I
You
guess.
know
I
what I'm
don't know.
saying? Where's Mog in this universe? Like, I know, like, we're talking like descendants of Mog. Like, dude, how did the Moogles
Yeah.
fall so far from the tree?
Well, see, like Final Fantasy IX, I think they nailed the look. Like
Yes,
they were very cute.
yes.
They had the like over dramatically like large ball on top of the
Yep.
head, and sometimes they look like cats, sometimes they look like little teddy bears. But like
For the most part,
whatever,
they were
whatever,
cute.
whatever they did, I don't know what reference art they were using to create that.
They were
But
like, we
my
got to make these
God.
cartoony plush things that look like meth addicts. Like I had a nightmare. That if I had a nightmare and drew a Moogle from that nightmare, that's what that would look like.
I can see. You got some of them Koopo
You
nuts.
know, some of them Kupo nuts, Kupo. It's like get away from me, motherfucker. So with we think that I think it's gonna end with like a twist, kind of, right? I'm assuming it's going to because we've been thrown for a loop so far. Okay. So and we know that there's obviously a dedication and commitment to making sure that the final game, whenever it comes out, the final chapter, final episode, whenever it comes out, I assume 3 to 4 years later, I'll be old by then. I'm old now, but I'll be old by then. um I'm assuming it comes out PS6 or some shit, like something when we're old and gray. But here's my question.
It'll be in VR.
I'll be in V. Oh, jeez, Chadley, let me punch you in the fucking mouth. Stop throwing me these challenges. What do you want Final Fantasy 9? Because I assume it's going to be remade. How do you want it to look? Honestly, like if you, because like what's kind of we know how we feel about Rebirth. It's we have positive impressions of it, but like we know like once we get done with 7 and we expect like let's say 9, 6 or 9 to get remade next. I expect 9. What do you want 9 to look like visually? And do you think should they go back to like classic turn-based style, or should they kind of stick with this style right here? Because I think it would work with Zidane's speed and the different combat mechanics. What do you think?
I actually like 9 because it is a much different artistic style from 7, 8. You know, I mean, well, 7 was definitely cartoony just because of the limitations, but then 8, they went much more not hyper realism, but
Well, they made Squall the most handsome man on the
yeah,
on the
like
dance
like
floor with his pixelated
uh,
face.
yeah. But with 9, they really went with a goofy aesthetic.
Kind of went
Zidane
with
had a
with
bigger
a classic look too. Right,
yeah,
if we're being
with the
honest.
like Zidane had a oddly shaped large head.
Mm-hmm.
Vivi was not a actual person. Um, uh, Albert,
Yeah,
um, Reiner.
yeah,
For
Reiner.
some reason, I remembered his first name. Reiner was like comically large. He was just like a round person. So it's like there was a lot of variance in that. And I think if they try to make like like to me, Barrett translated well from PS1 graphics to now graphics. I
Mm.
don't think Reiner would do that well. Like if they tried to make like a hyper realistic
Right.
Steiner or uh, I would hate to see a high definition Queen Braum. So
Oh Lord,
it's
no, please.
it's like I'm not going to say it needs to be like like Borderlands cell shaded. I don't think it needs to be like
Kind of
that
Dragon Quest
cartoony.
like, right?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
there needs to be some type of kind of gloss to it. Like like less detail, more like a unique branding to it.
Right.
Like it
Right.
needs to have its own, like almost an anime style. Honestly, I would like a,
So we're not looking
um,
for photorealism, even though
yeah,
we think that like what's here is fantastic, and
yeah, yeah.
it's kind of weird too, right? If you like kind of throw in, it's done so well that you're looking at like chocobos, baby chocobos, Red 13, like all these fantastical elements, Meth Kupo, Meth Moogle, you know, and it all kind of fits. Like nothing feels like too out of place. Like the characters don't feel like these things wouldn't exist in that world. I think it's fine that way. I think when I saw that fan made 9, I think CG, or no, I don't know if it was actually playable. It was probably playable. That like their fan made remake.
Mhm.
I kind of want it to be like that. I don't think you can have a lifelike VV, right? I
Right.
think you can update and make an HD version of them. Same thing with Zidane. Keep kind of like that comical, cartoonish aspect to it, but just make it like if someone like Nino Kune, right, if a game like that can exist and we don't have any questions about it, I think you can do that with Final Fantasy 9. I just wonder if because we know that development, especially with the way Square Enix, like especially the big Final Fantasy teams work, usually there's like a lengthy period of time. So I wonder who's going to handle, what team is going to handle 9. Because before, the reason why 15 took so long is because they were trying to work Kingdom Hearts in at the same time they were doing, like, I think 13 at the time. And it was initially, for those who remember, it was Final Fantasy versus 13. And then it eventually took so long, God, the bright light, that it went to Final Fantasy 15, you know? And I think what people should be applauding, Square Enix, is that they went from 15. They really learned a lesson about like not putting out incomplete games that weren't finished, because 16 took years to develop and then come out, and I think a lot of people were just anticipating the game being here. And one of
Mhm.
the things that I also want to applaud Square Enix for was that they put out a fucking demo of the game. Same thing they did with Rebirth. They didn't have to do that. You knew what you were kind of going to get, but they put out 2 separate demos, one for Nibelheim, one for Junon. What's so fascinating is that like 7 Rebirth being as content complete or being as content filled, like you know, that's a lot, dude. Like I'm kind of okay with Square Enix taking their time. So if 9 or whatever they decide to come out with next, 9, 6, I assume 8 is going, like, I'm kind of shocked that like no, like Square Enix probably isn't sitting there going like, let's hit a dartboard with 8. I think 8 would probably benefit from being more like 16 than it would be like 7. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I really feel like that combat system, having the ability with Squall and the Gunblade, I remember like that was such a unique thing back in the day because there's so much interaction
Right.
with summons and stuff like that. And I think with 9, it was like the only real interactable thing that frustrated a lot of people was the limit break system, the trance. We were all like, shit, we could have we could have done a little better with trance, a little bit too automatic at times, right? I just look at that and say, Square Enix right now, out, and it's kind of hard to say, like, not outside Final Fantasy, like, just with the Final Fantasy, I think they've got it down. And I think that if we're looking at 3 to 5 years per weight, you know, I'm okay with that, right? 16 is getting DLC. I don't think 7 Rebirth needs any DLC. I don't. I don't think we need like an optional chapter. Maybe if you want to, because we both know that Vincent and Sid are not going to be playable. They've announced that already. Um, they could, but they don't have to. You know, I th-
voices Vincent?
who is it?
Matt Mercer.
Well, you can't play the game anymore. We're gonna have to knock it down a
As soon
peg.
as I see him, I'm just turning off the PlayStation.
No, we're done. I didn't get to this part. It's like chapter 10 or 11 or something. It's like, Matt Mercer, get the fuck out of here. I didn't pay for this. Um yeah, I mean, is there anything right now with 7 Rebirth that you're kind of concerned with? I can kind of like tell you, I can probably assuage some of your concerns, but
Yeah,
right now, like, do you have any major concerns?
not really. So
I'm gonna
the
zoom in
one
on
thing,
that fucking.
so the one thing was how how remake ended, right? It
Yeah,
got really like just goofy, like follow
Kingdom
me into
Hearts.
the
It was
yeah,
fucking Kingdom Hearts ish. Sora.
follow me into the portal and we'll fight the harbinger of fate. And it's like what? And then
Sephiroth just be
like
like, "What up?"
so yeah, and then spoiler if no one's played remake, but like Barrett dies, and then he just it doesn't die, and then it's like I'm like okay, this is a little weird. So it ended with like many more questions than it like really solidified. Like it,
Hmm.
I'm not gonna say answered because it obviously is the first of a trilogy. So I'm okay with there being open ended things, but it was just like they just like went off the deep end. They just like jumped into the ocean, and then we're just like, all right, you have to wait 6 years to
One
find out.
one of the
But
things that I think Square Enix kind of struggles with sometimes, especially the Final Fantasy team, is that they give you hints, and it's like that meme. I think it was like the Sailor Moon meme where the dude's like, he's like, "I take my leave." It's like you didn't do anything though. He just like runs off and shit. Basically, I think like so far everything's been explained. Um, and it really just kind of feels like there is a cohesive thing to follow, right? But there's also all these different, as you're traveling the world, because you are going to places that, once again, not everyone's from Midgar in the party. People are from other places.
right,
You are getting introduced to these characters. It really flows really well. I think that if you were to compare, I think that was disc two, right? I think like mostly. How many discs were
yeah,
there in Final Fantasy 7? It was three or
there,
four?
there
Three.
was four, but I think the fourth disc was very short.
Yeah. So I think like if because I know that if you just play this straight through the story, which however you want to play do it, I think that it would probably be one of those experiences where it's like, okay, yeah, seven, okay, we got disc two and three ish, but where it ends, also that's where disc I think three ended too. I might be wrong, but yeah, so far there's just no hiccups. That's fucking weird to me, man. Like I keep saying it. Like there's gotta be like, where's the I? It's probably bad because it's just like the way this generation of gaming has gone for me. Where I'm like, where is it, man? Where's the part where it kind of falls off the cliff, where the quality kind of dips, and it just hasn't. And I'm at chapter 9, so I'm like, okay, so maybe Square Enix kind of understood that Seven remake for a lot of people was a bit confusing near the end. It really felt like, especially when you got to the last three chapters of Seven remake, it was like, all right, we're moving. Like, okay, buckle the fuck up. Like,
Well,
we got to leave this place.
yeah. Well, it was jarring. It was like you saw the
Whispers.
whispers or whatever.
Yeah,
Like you saw them occasionally, but then like the Barrett thing happened, and then you jump through a portal, and then you're fighting harbingers of fate. It's like there was a very drastic
yeah, very
like
drastic jump forward. I don't know if that's going to happen because we all know that there's like a very, if you've played Seven before, you also know that there's like a big spoiler event that happens, and I wonder how they handle it. But because there's parallel timelines, right? I think Square Enix is gonna get a little fucking kooky with it. That's my opinion because I haven't gotten that far. Because I'm really, this is like, it's really rare for me to take my time with the game. It really is sometimes like,
So my question is because there are parallel timelines for the trilogy to end. Do they come out with two different, kind of like a Pokemon thing, where there's like two different versions of the game?
I think it ends up like
You
Advent
have
Children, right?
like Final Fantasy, Let's Go Cloud, and Final Fantasy Let's
Let's
Go
go,
Zack.
Zach. Hey, listen, if like the game doesn't end with me and Zach like back to back with our Buster Swords out and shit like that, killing Sephiroth, I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't even want like the end for me, like because one of the best parts about Seven was like the big fight with Sephiroth, where you're like you better had made sure your entire team was leveled up, or you were fucked. I want a thing where it's like, hey, dude, screw all that, right? I want them to get decimated like the Avengers did, right? In like a Tony Stark stream. And I just want it to be Zack and fucking Cloud. Back to back, big Buster Swords just swinging at Sephiroth. And then,
It's like wait, you have a Buster Sword?
yeah,
Did we just become best
you know,
friends?
it's just like swinging around. And I just want, like, for some reason, like the Emerald weapon to appear. It's just fire laser. So I,
And Red 13's riding them
yeah, he's
into battle.
riding the weapons into battle. Holy shit. Here's the big question, right? For me, do we want to see Knights of the Round return? Right? Do I mean that was the big, for those who don't know, for those who didn't play the original, that was the big summoning material. That was the big broken summoning material. That's how you beat the ruby weapon and the emerald weapon. Was that you had, I think it did not it did max damage, and then like it hit like what 15 times, I think. Some odd, some
Yeah,
crazy ass number.
it was 7, but yeah, it was the only it was one of the few attacks that you could do max damage multiple times.
Yeah.
So that's
Amazing.
why it became broken. Um, I mean, I think that would be a dope like side quest, right?
Oh, it'd be amazing.
Like with 15 and gathering all the special weapons, like the weapons of
Mhm.
your ancestors or whatever, like collecting the knights and like
Oh
combining them, and
shit, that would be an awesome
that
thing.
would
Chadley's like, so Cloud, I just found out this thing's like, shut the fuck up, Chadley. You're just like trying to push him. It's like I'm like
I,
I'm seething right now. That's pretty much
dude,
Cloud.
when he gives you the little scanner thing and he's like, it's the Chad. And I was like, what?
He's so stupid.
I'm gonna pull out my Chad and scan this crystal for you.
So I think
Uh,
the closing argument for us would be like, how do you see, how big do you think the third game is going to be? Because we're talking about world-ending implications if like everything goes the way it does. How big do you think it's going to be?
I think it's going to be a spectacle, right?
Mhm.
Feedback to the very beginning statement that I made. I think it's going to be a Mass Effect kind of thing. First one was story, a lot of explanation. The second one was just
You think it's
balls
gonna
to the wall
you, you
fun.
you think it's gonna take like a
I,
real serious turn too? I mean, it
well,
has to,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I think it's going to get a little bit more handholdy, right? It's not going to be just. Obviously, there's going to be content. I'm sure there'll be some cart, some. It'll be the Queen's Blood. I was trying to think of something cool that would be after Queen's Blood. The Queen's um, Rebirth. I don't know.
Queen
I'm sure they'll
Queen's
have.
Blood. Was it fucking they add in the stuff from Final Fantasy X. It's like what Queen's Blood Blitzball. Like, oh my god. Now you
um,
understand.
yeah, like I'm sure there'll be some of that. Like I'm sure the entire experience won't just be serious. You know, we have to save Earth the entire time, but I'm sure there will be a lot more story beats. They'll be much more serious. Maybe even a few tears.
I
You know,
do
from
I
me.
do like love the fact that you know when you're seeing, it's far more impactful in my opinion when you watch Cloud chase Sephiroth, like his obsession with him, right? It's really interesting to see it. And then also when you're doing the various relationship stuff, like the way the game makes you choose, and obviously we're gonna have higher romantic implications. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but like obviously there's it feels like you're leaning toward like
Red
romantic
13.
stuff. Yep, Red's the guy, dude. Red, let's go on the sky wheel together, brother. Tell me what you want to see, buddy. um yeah, I feel like this. I'm wondering how like stuff, and this is the part that where it could really fall apart in the third game, is that there's all these things that you've set up, right? The relationship status stuff, the introduction of like Sid and Vincent, and they were not party members, and now they're going to be. How do we get to that point? Because I think one of the big things also is like getting your ultimate weapons as well, right? Like the high wind and all that stuff like that. Um, I do think it's gonna get more serious because like we're gonna reach obviously the end point. There's a lot of like things happening. How do they integrate Zach into it? Right? How does Zach's story kind of go in parallel? Like, do we have like a moment where we have like a whole section where we're controlling Zach? I know that there's tidbits where you're like, oh, Zach's in the game. Like, what are we doing here? I wonder like what adjustments get made toward the Sephiroth fight, because here's the thing that probably would frustrate people, is like fighting him multiple times and him like escaping randomly, right? Like, I mean, it makes a good villain, but we're kind of at that point where like after we get to that one scene, what happens next? Like, how do we approach certain scenes? Because I mean, the content found, I think, in the fourth disc was really melancholy and somber. Like it's like the typical JRPG trope where it's like the world is fucking ending. There's a meteor. Like we're screwed. Like what happens? I kind of want to see the reactions of like the different citizens and how it like changes certain side quests, because I mean things are gonna fall apart, right? So I am wondering how all that translates into the third game because I would say like if you just play the story of each of them, they're around 25 to 30 hours a piece, right? No side content. I wonder like if the third game is going to be the same way. And because you've kind of outdone yourself with Rebirth, in my opinion, with like the amount of variety that there is in this game. I wonder how that's going to translate into like the third game because you have to have some of it because eventually we both know like in the third, like you do get a ship, right? So I wonder if like
Ship battles,
yeah, do
skull
you,
and bones.
well I mean
Woo!
do you but dude, do you take you know do you take this kind of like disconnected open world and make it more connected? And can that shit run on the PS5? I don't think it can. I think this has to be built for the new generation of games or new
I
consoles,
bet
right?
I bet it's a physical only game, but they don't sell it on discs. They sell it on SSD, on 4 terabyte SSDs,
It has.
specifically
I
for
mean,
for the
it's
PlayStation.
what two Blu-rays or some shit. So it's like 140 gigs.
Right.
I would be shocked. And like here's the other thing. I think this is just me saying this is Square Enix, dude. Sell it all under one package. Do it. Do
Final
it's
Fantasy VII Definitive Edition.
definitive edition. And then I want you to make that moogle. I want you to make the meth moogle the main fucking picture that I'm looking at on the fucking deluxe edition. Just like cracked out, looking for Kupo nuts
With an Uzi.
with an Uzi. But that's my question to you is like, do you think, you're looking consistency wise, there's a lot to like take in consideration because with the relationship stuff, it's just like Mass Effect, right? Like your actions matter, your relationships deepen,
Relationships.
relationships, your relationships deepen. So now like all this stuff has to be like accounted for. So I wonder how that's gonna work.
Good question. I I once again, the first one ended with a lot of questions, and I mean, so far in the second one in Rebirth. Are you talking to me?
No, I have to mute someone's walking in the room. All right,
uh, um, and I don't know if they get to answer all those questions in the second one.
Mhm.
So I they're doing kind of like a flashpoint type of. We don't know what they're going to do because they can do anything,
They
right? Like
can. They
they're
have
not.
the agency to
Yeah,
change everything about the game. And
right. So it's
and
like
I'm hoping that they don't try to make too many drastic changes in the final game because like you don't like I know you introduced the whispers like but we haven't seen any of them, right? And like the opening chapters like where are they? It's like they talk about it and they're like, "All right, cool, man. Now we're going to go to the saucer." It's like time to play games, brother. Let's get it over with.
because
I
I am kind of afraid in the ending of Rebirth or near the ending, something stupid's going to happen. Like someone is going to die, or
but
um,
there's going to be like a parallel timeline version of them.
well yeah, and then like the start of the third one is going to be like, oh, he actually didn't die because we said didn't die.
He's super Sephiroth, bro. Like, what do you mean?
Right? Like I feel like they're going to like they're going to make an unnecessary cliffhanger for the second one, like
Mhm.
something stupid's going to happen,
Like they're
and
gonna
you're
try to
going to be like,
retcon some
oh
stuff.
no,
I mean, that makes sense,
oh
yeah.
no, and then at the beginning of the third one, they're like, oh, just kidding, it was actually a dream sequence
Because remember,
or
like that
something.
messy type of stuff like has to be rectified in the third game. And like if you
Yeah,
remember, Cloud having like his mental breakdown and Tifa was like the only person to pull him out and stuff like that. And it was like there's a lot of shit happening here that we're gonna see a lot of good character development. I have complete faith that gameplay wise it's gonna be great, character wise it's gonna be great. But the narrative can get messy if they, once again, just kind of like throw random shit. Like, do you guys want to see the whispers again, bro? Boom! No one dies, right? Parallel
random,
timelines.
just random portal to it'd be funny if they threw in like Kingdom Hearts or something. There's
Yeah.
like random
The
portal
true
into
enemy is Sora. Like, fuck. I knew it, bro. Kingdom Hearts 4.
anti-cloud.
Yeah,
What?
Nega Cloud. Fucking
Red
cloud.
Red 14.
Red.
Oh my god.
Vincent No Valentine.
I just start
Sid
making some
Lowwind.
weird, some yin yang parallels. Yeah, it's
God.
just like I could, once again, with the way the first one went, they just opened it up to we can assume 10,000 different things, but there's 11,000 things for them to do. So I'm not gonna say it's not fair. Well, it's with stories and like twists. I feel like some twists are just there to be a twist,
Yeah.
right? There's nothing that alludes to the twist. They just put in the twist. Like you can't. There's no way to figure it out. They hid the information and then now it's available. And other stories they allude to a twist and then the twist happens. So it's like you
Right.
can figure it out.
Yeah. 100%.
So it's it's up in the air, right? It's the ball's in their court as to how grandiose they want to make this.
It's gonna be interesting. All right. Well, that's gonna do it for this podcast. Brad, we listen. We're the ones that started this. We didn't need those guys. That was fun.
Back to the OG
Back to
days.
OG days. We'll make it lean, make it easy. Knowledgeable gamers right here, bro. I don't know
Now
what the
they can
next.
think about their show.
Yeah, I don't know what the
Whatever.
that is gonna be. I don't know what the next Pixelate Thoughts episode is gonna be. We'll ask the other guys. We do know what the next anime coming up is gonna be. Instead of Konosuba, it's gonna be Delicious in Dungeon or Dungeon Meshi, which is really good. I really like it. But yeah, playing more Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. We might do another tier list update after this. Why the fuck not? We need more content. This is the easiest way to do it. I am Ken. That is Brad. This is Pixelated Thoughts. We'll talk to you next time, everybody.